Dane Dunham, co-moderator of the Audio Description Discussion Facebook group, and you are listening to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series, Beyond Your Narrator episode.
Today, we're very happy to have Alex Howard with us. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Hey, nice to be here.
Let's start by asking you what you love about audio description.
I mean, for me, it helps me see the subtitles and text on the screen and obviously fast cutting action. But I think it also helps other people with lower vision than I have enjoy movies like I do, and helps the consumers be very inclusive in the industry.
That kind of inclusive sounds like connection. Have you found in your experience or with other people that use audio description, the connection means something to you as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really helps to connect with a wide audience of people, especially like in the theater with the comedies, how everyone's laughing, and the horror, the tension that builds. So I think the human connection that movies have is really important. And so I think audio description helps visually impaired people enjoy that.
Great. Let's pivot to a different question about maybe some challenges that you've had in accessing audio description, or maybe even just the kinds of audio description that you're getting. If there's some challenges that you found that either you found a way to overcome it, or you're encouraged that things are going in the right direction.
I used to work at AMC, and so after I stopped working, I got the A-list pass, and I would go all the time. And so just in the last 2 years or so, I started getting the audio description device every time I went. Before it would just be like, oh, if I need it or whatever, but it was started to be every time just in case. And so I think I would say about 60 to 70% of the time, it would either not work or it would be the one that makes the sound louder. And so they would confuse the two devices. And so it would, they'd give me the wrong device. And so I'd have to run out, and it doesn't work till the movie starts. You don't know till like right when the studio logo pops up. You have to run out, switch it out, go back in. And I found that Universal, the AMC at Universal City Walk, did it the best because they said, okay, we'll send in someone to the theater when the movie starts. So you can just hand it off and then they'd run out. And so eventually I used to work at the 16 in Burbank. So there was one time I went just after a few times of them getting it wrong. And I was just like, you guys are awful at this. Like, I used to work here and you guys need to improve. So I actually emailed the email that you're supposed to email when you are calling out of work to them. All the managers get it. So I emailed that email, even though I didn't work there anymore. And I was like, you guys need to shape up, and like City Walk is doing it this way and all that. And after that, I had so much of a better time. It was so much better. And I'm hoping that, I think the most important thing is when you get it wrong, when they get it wrong, you should say something, because if you don't say something, they don't know. And it helps everyone who uses audio description to say something. I think audio description for physical media is very important. And I think once there's a track, it should be on everything. If it's on Prime, it should be on iTunes, it should be everywhere. Because like the track should follow the movie, just like closed captioning, and there shouldn't be rights to the tracks. It should follow wherever the movie goes, the track goes.
That's great. And that pass through that you talk about, I like to say cinema to streaming, that it just captures everything. Like you said, it travels through. You mentioned quality, specifically with the 4K, and how whether it's intentional or not, what I'm hearing is that quality means a lot to you. Can you talk about what quality means to you as far as audio description goes?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was talking about quality of video before with like the contrast of colors and the black levels. I think the deeper blacks really helps it stand out and pop for me when I'm watching. But beyond that, I think the quality of audio description, like I actually just wrote an article with Respectability, who is a organization that helps fight for inclusion and equality, especially in the entertainment industry. I just published an article with them about The Mandalorian and how their audio description is literally out of this world. Like they have to write Star Wars terms, they have to write all of these like complicated terms and phrases in the Star Wars universe, but also make it understandable for the general audience. And their description is unreal with the writing they have. And so I think that is the level that everyone should strive for, because even my sighted friends who don't even need audio description are like cool with the audio description on The Mandalorian because it's just so good.
Wow, that's great. And how's that reception of that article that you wrote for Respectability? How have people responded to it?
I think it's done pretty well. I don't know on their end how much feedback they've been getting as an organization, but I know it caught your attention at least, and that's why I'm here. And yeah, I think my initial post in the audio description group was talking about that, and it got so much traction. And the narrator commented, and I was like, well, I think this is a story because I can interview her. and get her input. So that's where that all came from.
Very cool. And having that article out there, it seems like that's accomplishing a lot of other things too, besides just sharing your needs of quality. Do you find that whether it's respectability or other outreach, whether it's the audio description group or otherwise, that this conversation is happening, that we're at a point where, at least it seems like we're at a point where we're talking about making sure that we do have more content in the same way that you were saying about the 4K, but also the quality does matter, that it makes a difference in your experience.
I was watching something, I think it was Death Note, which is a Netflix movie from like 3 or 4 years ago, and the audio description on that is not nearly as good as it is now. It's kind of robotic. It's kind of like, almost like a computer wrote it. So I think the more human aspect of the description, the better. And I know that people, sorry to go back to your last question, people within the organization of respectability and other people who have read the article have said like, oh, I watched the finale, or I just started this series with the AD, and like it really does elevate the experience for everyone. Like it points out things that you wouldn't normally see. I know another example, I watched In the Tall Grass on Netflix. It's a adaptation of a Stephen King short story, and they said like the name of the church that was in the movie, and the person I was watching it was like, oh, I didn't even like see the name of the church, and it had like a real foreshadowing effect if you knew the name of the church. And so I was like, these little details that people don't normally catch is like really enhances the experience. If it becomes a wider experience, just like closed captioning, people watch closed captioning when they want the sound to be down so their partner can sleep. And I think if people start using audio description like that, like they could cook or, do other things while they watch, because they don't necessarily have to be looking at the TV all the time.
And at the time of this interview, I think there's an article by Netflix or referencing Netflix having an audio only mode, at least for Android devices. So it sounds like that's headed in that direction where audio description can be that curb effect in the sense that sighted people can take advantage, just like you're mentioning. Where would you love to
Mhm.
see audio description head in the future?
Well, for one thing, I think if we can, like I was saying before, have the track follow the movie and get it on all platforms, Vudu, which I know doesn't have it, HBO Max, which doesn't have it right now. But I think if we can have it, follow the movie, I think it would make everything a lot easier. And I know modern movies now, most major studio movies have it because it's just part of their post-production process. But it doesn't always pair up with, whatever platform you're watching it on. So like if it exists, it should be there. But I think the other thing is that a lot of older movies that are being re-released on 4K and just in general should get an audio description track in some sense. Like I know I just bought Die Hard and the Back to the Future trilogy on 4K, and there's a track for audio description on Netflix for Back to the Future, but it's not on the discs on the physical media. And I'm like, these older movies like Breakfast Club, I just looked at the ADP website, says that it's on iTunes, and I watched it on Prime Video last night, and I was like, well, older movies like this, especially ones that don't have a track like E.T. and these classic movies, aren't available for the visually impaired. And I think like I grew up with E.T. I love that movie, and it's like people who are visually impaired can't enjoy it at all. So I think having AD tracks on older movies is really important, and I think that's where, once it's widely available for every new release, I think you start going in the back catalog of things and really start putting it with everything.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think where AD really comes in handy, I think, is action movies and horror, at least for me, because the fast cutting, the gore, I just went through and watched Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street with my roommate, and he does a really good job of describing the kills as they happen because it's hard to see sometimes. But I think if there could be some way to go back through like Arrow Video or Shout Factory or something like that and put AD tracks with these iconic horror and Black Hawk Down action movies and things like that, that would be really great.
Very cool. How can people follow you?
I guess you could always contact me on Facebook. If you say, oh, I heard about you through this podcast, I'll for sure accept you. I'm on Twitter. I don't use it that much. I think it's Alex Howard 11. Instagram is me and my blazer. I used to do a podcast with my roommate called Not Quite Hollywood. We don't do it anymore, but there's a lot of interesting topics that we talk about on there. I think my blog, if you just search Alex Howard movie and TV reviews, I think it's Doggone Movie Reviews. It should come up. And Respectability, I mean, I've been writing articles for them. They're gonna be starting their summer lab program next summer. It's a virtual program for people in the entertainment industry with disabilities, and the application should open next month. So if anyone is interested in that, you should definitely go for it because it's really cool.
That's great. Oh, thanks so much for sharing all that, Alex. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you.